Unit 16, PhD student Paulina Kujor. Businesses etiquette and protocol, do's and don'ts when conducting businesses in specific countries, the East-West divide, how cultural differences affect businesses' communication style, basic customs, greetings, and politeness, formality, eye contact, physical closeness, building trust and power relationship, decision-making, email etiquette, concept of time, national pride, silence, humor, language, and tone of voice.
Hello everyone and welcome to the last MOOC from the Silesian University of Technology in Poland amongst intercultural communication skills. Let me introduce myself. My name is Paulina. I am a lawyer and a sociologist, a PhD student at the Silesian University of Technology. I am a founding member of two associations, the Polish Society for Technology Assessment, and the Silesian Center for Business Ethics and Sustainable Development. I currently work in an advocate office in Katowice, Poland, and am preparing a PhD thesis on minors as perpetrators of cybercrime. My scientific interests are mainly forensic sciences, criminal law including economic criminal law, as well as some elements of psychology. This chapter will discuss business etiquette and protocol. The following will be touched upon: issues related to self-presentation, priority rules, rules for seating guests during meetings, business dress code, as well as rules for preparing correspondence, including electronic correspondence. Business habits in individual countries are discussed, such as exchanging business cards. The listeners will be able also to learn about language differences and their importance in business communication, including the issue of so-called false friends. There will be also shown some business fun facts, informing about things that we usually don't think about. We will also discuss the role and importance of nonverbal communication. To make the topic not only theoretical, we have asked some businessmen a few questions about business etiquette in their companies. Our interviewees are CEOs or high-level managers, who deal with business etiquette issues all the time. Please meet James Hamilton, VP Operations and Controller in PubNub Incorporated, San Francisco, USA. And Jack Newcomb, co-founder and CEO in New & Co., Los Angeles, USA. Business etiquette contains written norms regulating the way in which, of moral point of view, people should behave while doing business matter. It is a code of conduct, a set of behaviors which are used to prove being a professional, being a person who can behave properly in business situations, who is a subject of trust. When it comes to business etiquette, there are some rules that shall not be broken. It may not be obvious, but still many companies apply their internal codes of conduct and require from their employees to behave in an appropriate way. Usually there is also a special business protocol, which is created on the basis of the diplomatic protocol, and implemented into business relations. It is a set of rules enabling understanding our interlocutor. The protocol regulates the mutual contacts of high-level people. Is part of international diplomacy and courtesy. Sometimes the protocol is being used interchangeably with the etiquette. We should also point to savoir-vivre, which are the rules of cultural behavior in social situations. Savoir-vivre is not about obeying some strict social rules, it is about paying attention to own and others' needs. We should be able to express ourselves freely, but we always have to remember that we must not violate the comfort of others. We shall present ourselves in such a way that interlocutors can easily understand our intentions. Now that we already know what exactly is business etiquette and protocol, it's time to show you some details. Have you ever wondered who should say hello as first? Have you heard about the language differences that might affect your speech? Are you sure that you know what the nonverbal communication consists of? All this, and even more, we are going to show you right in a moment. Business etiquette consists of many more elements than just what we have to say to the other party. Equally important, or, shall we better say, even much more important, is how we present ourselves and how we behave, meaning how our interlocutor will see us. It is almost impossible to show all issues of business etiquette and protocol. That is why we will focus on a few most important of them. First of all, greeting and starting conversation. One may say, it doesn't matter who is the first to say hello and welcome the others. Well, in business relations it is of great importance. In Asian countries a common greeting is a bow. All European and North American countries use a greeting in a form of light and short shaking hands. It is usually assumed that we shake right hands. But there are some situations when people shake hands with their left hand. For some Eastern or African countries, such behavior might be offensive, because their left hand is perceived by them as impure. But in Europe it does not have any negative meaning, and it may happen that people who are left-handed will almost automatically reach out their left hand, as a dominative one, to shake someone else's hand. However, the rule is that in business relations people shake right hands. Most of the countries prefer shaking hands 5 to 7 times. But in the other ones, including Poland, it should rather be 2 to 3 times. Shaking hands for a longer time may cause discomfort, so it is not allowed to hold someone's hand when they want to take it back. Fun fact. Did you know that in Poland it is still quite common that a man kisses a woman's hand in greetings? It is a sign of respect and the man shows that he is gallant. Although it does not happen as often as it used to 50 years ago, it still can be an expression of courtesy. Nowadays, however, such behavior can put a woman in an ambiguous situation, reducing her business role, so in business situations men should avoid kissing women's hands. How to address people in different situations. If we do not know much about the person who we are talking to, we should address them according to the general courtesy forms. That means that we should use forms like Dear Mr., name, or Dear Sir. But if our interlocutors have some academic titles, we should use them, so we should say Dear Professor, name. The situation looks the same when addressing people who have professional titles. Then we should say, for example, Dear Counselor or Dear Doctor. Important note. In some languages there are additional spoken forms including Mr. and Mrs. In Poland and in Germany it is very important to address people as formal as it could be, so while speaking Polish or German we should use the more polite versions of addressing someone. That means that in such situations it is better to say Dear Mr. Professor, which in Polish would be
Szanowny Panie Profesorze.
When we are introducing a person to a wider audience we should use the person's titles. That means it is better to say, Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Professor Smith, than please meet Mr. Smith. However, if Professor Smith was introducing himself, he should rather say hello everyone, my name is John Smith, than my name is Professor John Smith. What he might say, if he wants to tell others about his title, could be, my name is John Smith. I am the professor of University ABC. It is very important to introduce the unknown, new person to others, so when a new person shows up, he or she should be shown around. Let us check how it really looks like in business. Question. How does the onboarding process look like in your company? Are the new people in the company introduced to the already existing team?
I could say in general, it will vary slightly from office to office, but the idea is that when they come into the office, they're welcomed and shown around, shown where they're sitting. They're usually spending the first little bit of time, like just getting their technology, which they need pretty much straight away to be able to interact on email and Slack and all the key ways of communication. We do company announcements for any new employee or contractor, welcoming them, telling them a little bit about themselves. And then we have a certain set of onboarding tasks from like IT and HR. We set up like boot camps, we'll gather like new employees together and we'll talk through different, say, HR topics. And then outside of that, then we will do teams will actually have their own onboarding plans for getting them up to speed. We like to make sure like everybody has what we call like a 30, 60, 90 plan. So what are the expectations in the first 30 days, next 60 and 90 days, as they kind of ramp up, so that they know that they're on track. If there's anything they can, what if they're meeting certain goals, then they're doing a good job.
When I hire, it's very difficult to get a job. It's difficult to get an interview. It's difficult to get a job. And then once you get your foot in the door, we try to set people up to succeed. So train them, coach them up, give them feedback early so that they can do a good job going forward. A lot of other companies, it'll be easy to get a job, and then it's sort of a mentality of, well, either you can do the work or you can't. We spend a lot of time and effort and resources on the front end of finding really good people, and then trying to train them and coach them up going forward. So I think it's very important. I think for the first month is critical. First 3 months are really important. First 6 months even. Beyond that, they can start to kind of spread their wings and fly, but it's super important, and the responsibility is on the company to train them, coach them up as much as possible, because we've done so much work on the front end before they get in the door here.
The same rules of addressing people apply in preparing business correspondence. When writing a formal letter or email, we should start it with Dear Sir or Dear Mr. Smith, etc. and end it with Yours sincerely or Yours faithfully or kind regards. It is not advised to use emoticons in formal correspondence, so we should avoid putting smileys into what we are writing. We also should not use abbreviations. The person that we are writing to cannot wonder what we meant. Our message shall be clear and factual. And we shall remember to always check the emails for spelling and grammar errors before actually sending them. Fun fact. Did you know that? In the United States there are 11 million meetings held each day on average. That adds up quickly to 55 million a week and 220 million a month. By the end of the year, the meeting total is well over 1 billion. Fun fact. Did you know that? The time employees spend in meetings has risen around 10% each year, since 2000. This means that we are more attentive during the meetings, listen more carefully and ask more questions to be answered. When speaking with people from other countries or other cultural areas, we have to watch our language. Some things which for us are nothing special, for others may be naughty or offensive. Such words, which sound similar, but have way different meaning in different languages, are called false friends. We will now present you some false friends in Polish, in comparison with other languages. The most interesting differences that every Pole will tell you when asked, are 2 words. First of them comes mainly from German, but it also appears in the same meaning in other languages. The word is kurwa. It means a bend. In English, however, there is a similar sounding word, curve. These 2 words do not mean anything bad. But in Polish there is a word, kurwa, which in fact is a curse. So beware of using this word in front of Polish people, because you might get wrong. The other well-known difference is Polish word szukać. It means to search or to look for. Therefore Poles usually use this word when they are looking for somebody or trying to find a way somewhere. But it becomes dangerous when Polish people go to Czechia or Slovakia and try use this word for anything. In these languages there is a word written szukać. Slovak letter sh is pronounced the same way as Polish sh, but the literal translation of this word in Slovak or Czech means to fuck. So a person who would like to say I am looking for Anna should avoid using szukam Annie while traveling to these countries. There are many more interesting words, which sound or look similar, but mean something totally different. We will show you a few quick examples. English word preservative in Polish means conservant. But Polish word preservativa means a condom in English. Polish word droga, which means a road, in Croatian means a drug. Russian word czaszka means a teacup, but the same sounding Polish word czaszka means a skull. English word embarrassed is similar to Spanish embarazada, which is translated as pregnant. English word kitchen is similar to German Kitchen, but the literal translation from German would be jail. Danish word tag means thank you. It sounds similar to Polish tak, which means yes. English word dress in Polish means.
Sukienka.
But there's a Polish word, dress, which means a tracksuit. A German word, Dom, in Polish means cathedral. But Polish word, dom, means a house. There are many more similarities between words like the ones mentioned above. Sometimes when people want to tell someone that he is lucky, they may use a phrase.
Ale fart.
Then an English-speaking person may feel uncomfortable being accused of this kind of behavior. There are also some phrases which has the same meaning in different languages, but their literal translation is different. So when traveling to Europe, you must clearly note what language are you talking in, and make sure that the person you are talking to understands what you mean. Fun fact, did you know that? In Polish the word no is a non-formal way of saying yes. If you talk with somebody in English and his answer would be no, this would mean that he disagrees with you. But when you talk with somebody in Polish, and you hear no, you must remember it is a nodding, not disagreeing. You should always have in mind your sense of humor. There may be things which are funny for you or you treat them as a joke, but your interlocutor, due to the language or culture differences, may pick them up against your intentions. There are also some phrases, which keep their meaning only in the language that they come from and should not be literally translated into any other language. These phrases are called idioms. Many Polish people who do not know English well, use a special phrase to thank somebody for doing something for them in the future. Poles say,
Z góry dziękuję.
Which they translate into thank you from the mountain, while what they really mean is thank you in advance. A good example could be an idiom meaning that something is very easy. In English it is a piece of cake, in Polish it is
Bułka z masłem.
which literally is translated as a bread roll with butter. When a Pole wants to say that he does something very rarely, he may say
Raz na ruski rok.
which literally is translated as once for a Russian year, when in fact he should say very seldom, or hardly ever. Let us listen to our interviewee about language differences. Question. Do you think that language differences can be a barrier to communication with clients from other countries? How can you deal with them?
Definitely. Yeah, I think they definitely are a barrier. You can overcome them. But certainly, there's, sometimes meetings when you're working with people in two different languages, sometimes it takes a little bit more time, it takes a little bit more investment. I don't know. It's a barrier only in the sense of if you're not willing to put some investment into it. If you're trying to move really, really quickly and you're having language challenges, I think that it can maybe feel like a barrier. But, I'd say you have to do a lot of work to take your time and actually try to understand why you have those barriers. And I think for us, when we're dealing with them, we deal with that a lot at PubNub. I think the biggest thing is just to remember, I think it's very easy, especially as an English speaker, to, think that everybody knows English very well because it's so common to us, and it is a very common global language. And so it's easy to get, I know even myself, I'll easily just start talking very casual English without paying attention. And I do think it can sometimes cause confusion if I'm not careful with the words and the speed at which I speak. So it can cause misunderstanding, and that can be a barrier to kind of communicating what you're trying to get across to the other person.
Yep. So there are two situations. So one is what I was talking about, which is if English, so we're in America, so English is the language that's spoken here. And if English is not your first language, you can be really good at English, like great at it, but there are going to be some small nuances or slang that you're just not going to get. So, and I work with people that were not born in this country, but have lived here for 40 years, and there's still parts of the language that they don't totally understand. So in that regard, absolutely. I think it's the onus, it's the responsibility is on the native speaker to understand that and speak clearly and communicate clearly and not use slang. And it's really on them to communicate effectively so that they can get the point across.
Before starting the exact conversation, we can try a small talk. It is talking about nothing, a kind of introduction to the proper conversation. It precedes discussing important business matters. However, there are some topics that we should not discuss in small talk. These include religion, politics or the economy, but also ideological and moral issues. We do not discuss difficult matters. We do not talk about absent people. We do not ask questions about which our interlocutor does not want to talk about. We can talk about traveling, cultural events or sport. We can also express admiration for the painting hanging in the room. We can also talk about the weather, but we should have in mind that this topic in some countries may not be interesting, while in others is a must-be of every conversation. For example, in Great Britain it is very polite to talk about the weather for a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting. On the other hand, in Poland talking about a weather is treated like an artificial time filler if there is totally nothing that we can talk about, and we do not like silence at the same time. In some countries, like for example United States, it is common that everyone greets others with additional "how are you?" It is also a kind of small talk, however the answer should usually be like "I am fine, thanks." Such question hardly ever is an invitation to tell all the bad things which happen to us. To become a good businessman, you also need to learn the basics of nonverbal communication, such as interpersonal distance, voice intonation, and eye contact, which may also vary depending on the country of origin of our interlocutor or the culture from which he comes. Let us start with the interpersonal distance. In some countries, such as China or Japan, a man should not be publicly touched by a woman. On the other hand, in European cultures it is more about propriety than about cultural conditions. In Iran, Saudi Arabia or Yemen we should not show any closeness even to our relatives. Brothers and sisters should not greet each other in public. In Europe and Northern America it is quite an ordinary phenomenon that siblings of different gender can share a handshake or a kiss on the cheek in the middle of the street. However, there are some rules that are not meant to be broken, if it goes about interpersonal distance. There are several spheres which are designed on the basis of the type of situation that we currently are in. The closest one is the intimate sphere and it is up to about 45 cm. It is reserved for people closest to us whom we have full confidence in. It is used rather in informal situations. Violation of this zone by unauthorized persons causes considerable discomfort. The next one, a little wider, is the personal sphere, which is between 45 and 122 cm. It is used in both informal and formal situations. We find ourselves in it while in contact with other interlocutors or conversations in a very small group. Even bigger is the social sphere. Its range is between 122 and 360 cm. It is used for meetings in medium groups, like business presentation in front of 20 representatives of other companies. We are away from the presenter, but still have some contact, enough to, for example, ask a question or interrupt if necessary. And the last sphere is the biggest one. It is called public sphere and its range is everything over 360 centimeters. It is used for meeting with a very big audience, with almost no possibility of direct contact between the presenter and the public. We shall remember that the distance between us and the person or people we are talking to needs to be adjusted to our mutual relations and the type of the conversation. It will not be comfortable to present our offer to a single person sitting at the end of the big conference room, but it also will not be good when hundreds of people surround us during some event. Let us now get to the voice intonation. Voice intonation can provide us with valuable information about our interlocutor. We also need to remember that our voice can tell about us much more than we would like to show. By modulating our voice and choosing the right words, we can strongly influence the way our listeners perceive us and evoke the emotions we desire. But there are some serious mistakes that people make that can ruin their business contacts. First of them is a condescending tone, which means treating the interlocutor in advance. Nobody likes to feel like he is worse than others, so starting conversation in a manner "I am better than you, I know better than you" in most of the situations will not bring success. The next mistake is speaking too fast. If we are stressed, we usually speak faster, and that may cause some misunderstanding. Not even saying about how our stress is visible to the other person. People prefer doing business with others who are enough self-confident and know exactly what they are about to offer. Next mistake is speaking too loud. Although conversation with some nations may be louder and more impetuous, and with others more calm and sustainable, speaking too loud is always seen as a business faux pas. Nobody wants to be shouted at, so talking with very loud people is very uncomfortable. On the other hand, we should focus on preparing our speech in such a way, which will be interesting for others. If the way we are talking is boring, people will not even know what we are talking about, not saying about catching their attention. Fun fact, did you know that? 4% of meeting time is considered unproductive by participants. That means that at least this percentage of meeting is held in an inappropriate way, because of boring speeches, not answering the asked questions, talking about nothing at all. Eye contact is also an interesting element of nonverbal communication. It is a massive means of communication. Our eyes can show many hidden information. While in Asian countries people from their very first days are taught that they should lower their eyes because such behavior means good upbringing. Adult Asians avoid eye contact with an older person or a senior person in the professional hierarchy. In Europe and Northern America, the situation is way different. Young children are taught to look in the eyes of the older ones, and adults prefer keeping intermediate eye contact on any occasion. Therefore, avoiding eye contact will be for Europeans and Americans a sign that their interlocutor is shy, guilty, or is hiding something. Look of our face is one of the most important elements of communication. European and American people are used to be smiling all the time. For them, a smile always has a positive meaning. But in Asian countries it is the other way round. By smiling or laughing, people show fear, nervousness, or embarrassment. If one breaks his leg on his way to the meeting, Europeans and Americans will be sad and concerned, while Asians may chuckle a bit. The worst thing that we can do is to become stone-faced and showing completely no emotions about what we are just listening. With our face, we can show 6 main emotions: surprise, disgust, happiness, anger, fear, sadness. Let us check what the entrepreneurs think about the nonverbal communication. Question: in your opinion, is the nonverbal communication important while talking to companies, employees, or clients?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think nonverbal communication, you can tell if, people are paying attention, if they're genuinely interested, if they're engaged. Certainly things, especially when you're meeting somebody live, you by seeing their body language, it's very important. That's why, even when we're doing remote meetings like we're doing now, it's very nice to have video. You get more than just the words. You can actually see a little bit about what people are thinking and feeling, and plus you get to connect much better with people when you see how they are. You get to see how their body language is when you're interacting.
What matters is that it is important to people. So when we meet people and we see their appearance, or if we're in a meeting and we are engaging, we are making certain assumptions about that person in the moment. So if you're talking to somebody and they're nodding their head vigorously, you feel like, okay, they're listening to me. If they're sitting there stone-faced, or worse, smirking or shaking their head, you can say a lot. So forget about my company. It's just incredibly important. It's sort of unfortunate, and especially as the boss, as the leader, I have to constantly be aware of my body language, because if your boss comes in and the leader and he's having a bad day and he's grumpy, you're not going to want to work hard. You're not going to want to be there. So I have to make sure that I'm positive. It doesn't have to be like fake, but I have to represent myself as I want to be here, because then other people will see that and they'll want to be here too. And as it pertains to communication, it's incredibly important. What I say to people is that an email is probably the worst form of communication because there's no nuance to an email. Phone call is a little bit better because you can hear the person's voice. Video is much better than a phone call because you can see the person. And then face-to-face is the absolute best because you can actually get a read on what's going on. Because communication, the most important part of communication isn't what you're going to say. It's thinking about your audience and what they want to hear. And the only way, if you're writing an email, you have no idea. If you're talking on the phone, you have a little bit of an idea. If you're doing this, you have a little bit more of an idea. And if you're face-to-face, you can glean a lot from somebody's body language. So it's very important.
Business rules contain also dress code. It is a set of rules, thanks to which we may know how to dress properly depending on the occasion. There are several types of dress code: casual, smart casual, black tie, business dress code, and white tie. Casual dress code is a non-formal way of clothing. It is good for shopping, going for a trip, or to the cinema, but not necessarily should be used on business meetings. Smart casual dress code is slightly more formal, but still not typical outfit in accordance with the protocol. It is good for the office, but only for everyday work. It should not be used when we have in plan some important meetings. Black tie is appropriate for formal evening meetings. It should contain white shirt, black tie, vest, jacket, and elegant shoes for men, and long or at least midi dress, small envelope purse, and high-heeled shoes. The best colors for black tie are grenade, all shades of gray, browns, and black. Some institutions require from their employees a special business dress code while representing their company. A classical business dress code would therefore be a black suit, a tie, and white shirt for men. Women have more options. They can wear a white shirt combined with classical skirt or elegant trousers, or a midi dress, all sometimes covered with a suit jacket. White tie is not appropriate for business situations. It is used nowadays only for special occasions, like weddings or very festive balls. Let us check what our interviewees think about the dress code. Question: how important in your company is the dress code? Are there any situations that company requires employees dress in certain way?
It's a balance because appearance does matter, and it matters how your teammates view you, how you view yourself on a day-to-day basis. So what I tell people is that you want to be authentic to yourself. So style is personal, and what you wear should represent you and who you are. But it's really important to give off the impression, and the first impression, that you care. So you're meeting with an investor, you're meeting with a client, you have to read the room and understand sometimes you got to get dressed up. So if I'm going to an awards ceremony or I'm in a more formal sitting, I will absolutely put on a suit. If it's a black tie event, put on a tuxedo. The thing about fashion is you want to feel comfortable. That's the most important thing. So, and when I say comfortable, I don't mean like pajamas. I mean like appropriate.
I would say we don't have a formal required dress code. We certainly don't want people to wear anything inappropriate. When you have an open dress code, you don't want people wearing something that is just inappropriate in nature.
Another important issue in business etiquette is how we should be seating our guests at the table. The first rule is that guests should be seated alternately: a man, a woman, a man, a woman, and so on. When we have some honorary guests, the most important guest should be seated on the right side of the host organizing the meeting. It is said that the further away from the host or the most important guest, the less honorable a place is. If the table is rectangular, the inviting party, for example the owner of the company, sits at the top of the table. The most important guest should sit on his right, and the senior employee in the company on his left. The further away the employee sits from the most important people, the lower in rank is his function. When the table is round, the host takes his seat as the first one, then on his right side is a place for the most important guest and on his left side a place for his employee, or his wife if it is less formal meeting. If the host has an assistant, the assistant takes a seat as the last one. In formal situations, married couples should be seated separate from each other. This does not apply to just married or soon-to-be married couples. There are also some less important issues related to the etiquette, however they still have a huge meaning for the final effect. One of these issues is exchanging business cards. First of all, we should say a few words about business card itself. A standardized size is 5 by 9 cm. The paper from which the business card is made should be thick enough to avoid accidental creasing. The colors and fonts used in the business card project should be toned and appropriate. The data put into the business card should contain at least our name, our function, name and address of our company, phone number and email address. We shall remember to have enough business cards for every meeting. A situation, when we have less business cards than the amount of people whom we should give them, is unacceptable. The exchange of business cards should be initiated by the one who is of higher rank in the business hierarchy. While handing a business card, we should focus on doing it in such way that the person who we are giving it to would be able to read it immediately. This means that we shall not give it upside down or reversed. In Asian countries, especially Japan, South Korea or China, it is quite important to have the regional version of business card. This means that our business card should be written in English on one side, and in Japanese, Korean or Chinese on the other side. It should be handed with two hands, however in South Korea it is allowed to hand in only with the right hand. A handed business card should be put down on the table and stay there for the whole meeting. It is very unrespectful to tuck away a given business card without careful reading the information on it. In European countries business cards are not that important. We should have one to share, but, contrary to Asia, it is rather like let us keep in contact than introducing ourselves. Business relations are also about persuasion. There are some phrases, which, properly used, may help a lot to achieve our goal. First of these is the word no or not. Our brain does not get all of the information properly at once, and by the time we really understand what others are saying to us, our organism starts acting contrary. The finest example would be the phrase do not be nervous. While we hear don't be nervous, our brain first gets the straight information, be nervous. And we are getting nervous, which is contrary to what we have been told. So instead of this, we could say keep calm, and there is a huge chance that the reaction will be just as we expect. But there are some situations when people have to disagree to our offer, regardless why. This is just the way they are, they have to say no. When we ask will you meet me tomorrow? We hear no. When we ask would you like some pizza for the dinner? We hear no. When we ask will you dance with me? We hear no. Then we can try to ask the same questions, but already assuming the rejection. I bet you will not have time to meet me tomorrow? I bet you will not want pizza for the dinner? I bet you will not dance with me? And there the magic happens. If a person has to reject any question we ask, it means that the answer will always be contrary to the question. So if we say I bet you will not dance with me? The answer in this case could be of course I will dance with you. In business relations it works exactly the same. When we ask I bet you will not sign this contract, we can hear of course I will sign it. Another word with a special meaning is the word but. When used in a sentence, it cancels everything that came before it. So when we hear I would love to meet you, but I do not have any time, our brain subconsciously gets only the information I do not have any time. Knowing it, we can use it in business situations. You can go to other company, but we are better than them. We hear one thing, but we understand something totally different. One more interesting word is try. When someone does not want to or is not able to do something, we can ask him just to try doing it. Thanks to this we may know that he will do his best to do what he has been asked for, but he still is safe when something goes wrong, because he just tried. When we hear try to be on time, try to finish this project tomorrow, we know it is not an obligation, however it would be great if we managed to do as requested. Knowing these three words and their meaning, we can prepare our speech or conversation in such a way that our interlocutor will answer exactly the way we need it, without even noticing it. Fun fact, did you know that? During thinking, we only use about 35% of our brains. That is why our brain can figure out something else that we heard, exactly like causing stressful reaction, when someone tells us not to be nervous. Now it is time to check our interviewee's opinion about the persuasion. Question: what, in your opinion, is the role and the meaning of persuasion in business?
Certainly persuasion is very important in business. On one hand, from an external perspective, you want to be able to convince your customers that your product is superior to the competition or those products that you're going against. And you need to be thoughtful and careful and detail-oriented in the way that you persuade customers and how you do it and and kind of understanding what drives customers.
The short answer is persuasion doesn't matter. You got to focus on the skills and work ethic. Now, the long answer is once you get that, it matters a lot. Because if you think about it, if somebody's very persuasive, but they don't have the skills, well, they're going to talk themselves into a job, and you might like working with them, but at some point, you're going to get sick and tired of them making mistakes.
One more important thing is using a profile photo. Every day, all the people in the world take hundreds of thousands of photos of themselves and others. We take photos everywhere, when we are on a business trip, when we go for a vacation with our family, during the meeting with our relatives, and so on. At the same time, more and more various applications require adding photo of ourselves to the profile. In this way, can we use any of our photos to fill in our online profile? Social media, mailbox, phone contact, internal company's messenger, they all have a place for a photograph and usually are the tools to contact others. As far as we can put almost every photo to our private accounts, so personal social media accounts, private mailbox, etc., the situation gets more complicated when it goes to our professional outlook. If we do business, we want to do it with professional. Therefore, the photo should show us as professionals, meaning respecting the business dress code and look like we know what we are doing. So the photographs from holidays, family meetings, or other non-formal events will not be appropriate to represent our business account. It is all about the first impression. The way that people will see you for the first time is actually the way they will treat you later. The most important are first 3 minutes of looking at the person. So when we write an email to someone and there is our photo, this would be the first impression that we need to take care of. Getting known the dress code rules and the persuasion tricks, nothing in our first impression should be accidental. If we mess up to present ourselves as professionals, we may not have any more a chance to prove we are trustworthy. So let us better leave vacation photos for ourselves, and for professional goal let us better have a business portrait photo. How should it look like? Well, there are several points to check to get a perfect business photograph. First of all, we have to decide whether we want a photo while standing, or better sitting by the desk, or pretending to chat on the computer. Then smile slightly, but watch not to smile too wide. People smiling too wide are considered to be less professional, and people not smiling at all are considered to be inaccessible. We should also think of putting a light makeup, regardless of our gender. When our face is matte and smooth, it looks fresh, what makes a better impression on others. Next step is to think about our clothing. It is better to choose something smart, casual, or classical business dress code. We should avoid choosing very intensive colors. But if we do not want to be just black and white, we can put on some intense color necklace or handkerchief. However, apart from this, red painted nails are not a good idea. After all these preparations, we are finally ready to take a professional business photo. There were presented plenty of information about business etiquette and protocol. Now it's time to sum up everything that was mentioned during this course. Business etiquette contains written norms regulating the way in which, of moral point of view, people should behave while doing business matter. Business protocol is a set of rules enabling understanding our interlocutor. Savoir vivre are the rules of cultural behavior in social situations. Greeting and starting conversation, we should address people with their full name and title. However, we should not introduce ourselves with the title. When preparing a business correspondence, we should use the formal way of addressing people and starting or finishing the message. While talking to others, we have to watch our language. There are many false friends, which, being neutral for us, may offend others. Also, our jokes may not be properly understood by others. More important than words is the nonverbal communication. It contains mainly interpersonal distance, voice intonation, eye contact and face expression. There is a business dress code, which suggests how should we dress in various situations. Exchanging business cards may vary depending on the country. However, we always should read the handed business cards carefully and give it a proper respect. We can use some small talk as a preparation to a proper conversation. It should touch only neutral topics. Business relations are also about persuasion. There are some phrases, which, properly used, may help a lot to achieve our goal. We presented 3 main words: no, not, but, and, try. And that would be it for this unit. Thanks for watching and good luck with your business etiquette and protocol adventure in the future.